All right, everybody, it's Saturday. I'm a day late because I spent Friday celebrating my wife's birthday, but it is time for Decks and Data, the weekend video where we take a look at the newest card in Marvel Snap. I give you decks to help you achieve your weekend missions, or we just take a look at the data to see if the card is worth your precious tokens. This week in particular, we're going to take a look at Prowler, Hydraman, and then continue to review Spider-Punk as he's the Season Pass card. I'm excited for this video in particular because the Prowler is a card that I was extremely excited about. The community in general was extremely excited about. A little peek into the data. He's been the most popular card this season, so clearly it's a card that a lot of people are interested in playing. He's very cool. Very, very cool card. And so it's important when a card is hyped to see if he's really performing and what does the data actually reveal about the card. So let's get into it first with the Prowler. Now, I want to talk about the Prowler, but before that, it is time that I also give away a Season Pass, and I have two of them to give away. One of them to Yoni, who I already reached out to. He has a Season Pass already. But Blurl, you also won the Season Pass. We had two to give away from the last I Play Your Way video. So, Blurl, please reach out to me either an email or through the Discord, and I'll get you your Season Pass. You can get your weekend missions done with Spider-Punk and get some extra tokens, because this is, again, for Spider-Punk. If you're interested in winning a Season Pass, I have no more for Spider-Punk, but I will have more Season Passes for the next Season Pass, which is Weapon X next season. Those are in the I Play Your Way video that I release every Monday, so subscribe for that. Let's get started with the data here of the Prowler. Like I mentioned, the highest popularity rate at 8.8%. You'll see later that Spider-Punk's is higher, but he's been out for a whole month. But of like the weekly cards, this has been far away the highest popularity of each like spotlight card as it used to be being released weekly. So with that popularity rate, that is when you need to be more critical of the win rate. Again, huge caveat that I feel like mentioning as I'm specifying that the Prowler has been the most popular card and people are very hyped about him. There's a ton of data that we don't have, both positive and negative. As more people are interested in this really cool card, more people play it, the win rate goes down type of thing. But also, the more people are interested in this card, the more unique things that they do, the better the win rate could get, the more undiscoverable decks that might be out there. And having this data that is only through Untapped, that is a very narrow and very specific margin of the player base, just keep that in mind. But based off of that data, we can note that he has a 52.1% win rate and just barely a positive win rate or a cube rate of 0.07 cubes on average. What is interesting is that also the higher up you go on the ladder, right? The more competitive the games get, the lower win rate he has. And then post-infinite, he has a negative win rate of like 40-something%, which makes sense because post-infinite people are more willing to take risks and try ridiculous things and, take more risks, and so that makes sense. So again, like not blow your socks off win rate, like kind of just like actually kind of win rate. Like if this was associated with any other card, people would be saying, this is kind of a dud. Like it's not, Spider-Man Noir 40% win rate. That card's just challenging altogether, but it's not like this isn't a super exciting card that from like a stats perspective and from a performance perspective. So it's interesting that this is tied to a card that we all love in the Prowler, and so maybe, we're looking through rose-colored glasses. But my rating in my seasonal review, I have to add on another Spider here. I gave him a 6 Spider rating, and I still stand by that. If nothing else, this card has been fun to play. It's been cool to play. The variants have been enjoyable to look at when my opponent plays them, even if I beat them. It's just fun to see this card, and it's also fun to see the community so excited about the card. However, I feel guilty kind of giving it that rating and maybe having people FOMO into spending their tokens on this card because he's by no means busted good. I think this potential rating down here probably should be like reality rating in this case, that I think he's closer to like a 4-star card, and which is really good. Like he's not bad by any means, but definitely not quite to the obscene levels that I had imagined him at. But the fun factor and the cool factor is still just as good, so he's still a 6 Spider card for me because I've just enjoyed playing him that much, and I've enjoyed experimenting with decks, and I've been like, it's just a cool card to play. And when you play him and when you play his skills, which I think are really, really good, it's worth it. But I think the real rating is closer to 4, which is weird that I'm saying 4 isn't very good. Like a 4 out of 5 card is a really good card that you should probably consider getting, but he doesn't feel must own, if that makes sense. From the cool factor, he's absolutely a must own, but from like a current standpoint, must own. Like he doesn't enable an archetype that didn't exist before. He didn't take an archetype that was there and like take it to game breaking levels. Like he hasn't totally shaken up the meta from like a new deck or a new archetype or a new way to play or like improving an existing way to play. None of that's happened with him. He has shaken up the meta in that like everyone's playing him and it's cool, if that makes sense. But he's good, and in those decks that he is in, like he's a good part of them. He's just hasn't changed the game, so to speak. I'm trying to be realistic here because I realize that this is probably a card that most people have FOMO about. So I'm like trying to be as pragmatic. Is that even the right word? What does pragmatic mean? Define pragmatic. Oh, yeah. That is the right word. Dealing with things realistically and sensibly. Yeah, I'm trying to do that because I don't want people to, especially in this video, I hope can help people make decisions if they've been waiting for the card. I do apologize. It's a day later. Anyway, somebody asked, Rogerio asked in one of my videos, I don't like move very much. Do you think it's still a good card? Of the skills are always one cost, right? So if the skills are one cost, is he still worth playing? Which, as we get into the decks, I'm going to try and answer this question. I think yes, like his skills are actually really, really good. And in fact, my favorite deck that I've been playing with him isn't even a move deck. And so the skills are just good. Like they're, one of them is the remote mines is like a -4 that you cause to your opponent. 2 -2s, which is -4. Like it's a 1/4, which is good. Or more if you, combo it in some way. So yeah, I think that they're good. The same way that is Hawkeye Kate Bishop used to be when Clog was more prominent. You would play Hawkeye Kate Bishop in Clog and hope that you would get the Acid Arrow. So, you could apply the same comment that is Hawkeye Kate Bishop good if I don't like playing Clog? And I would say absolutely yes, particularly at a lower collection level. A card like Hawkeye Kate Bishop or Merlin, or in this case the Prowler, are just going to be like good value that they give your deck. Like your deck can now just do like one more thing better. That if you're not able to pull off the combo, you're not able to pull off the synergy, you're just like doing something that's good to do and like decent value and on rate curve, if that makes sense. The issue is that he's a 3 cost, not a 2 cost like Kate Bishop or Merlin. So he's somewhere in between. The other thing is that Kate Bishop's value is just like a good 2-drop in any deck has really gone down. That most of the time Kate Bishop is played in Clog or in like Victoria Hand, which she makes a ton of sense in. But just like good, she's a good 2-drop. Let's put her in everything. The way of playing has changed right now in Marvel Snap. It's not to say that it's never going to come back to that. It's just that it's not that right now. So like Kate Bishop is just a good card in basically anything has kind of gone away. And so if we were in that meta, the Prowler could be a good 3-drop to include in basically anything. And I think that there will be a point when we get back to that meta and like everything's way less synergistic and like we're kind of seeing the return of like mid-rangey style decks. And when that's a thing, I think Prowler will be good. So to answer your question, like, yeah, I think the skills are still good even if they're 1 cost. And I think when we get into, well, I'll say this before we get into the decks, I think we're missing a lot of deck building. The same thing that happened with Ezekiel, as much as I love Ezekiel and like a move-based deck, is that people get so focused on the entire text box that they kind of pigeonhole a card that, oh, Prowler has a move component in his text, so we need to play him with move cards. Sure, but he's also like a skill generating card that's really, really good. Maybe we should just play him in like a good cards deck type thing. And I feel like the deck building has been very limited where like everyone's just honing in way too much and way overemphasizing. I could get his skills for 0 cost, which like, yeah, who doesn't want to play his skills for 0 cost? But if we were to be realistic and be like, well, is playing his skills at 1 cost still good? Yeah, I think so. What can I do to achieve that in a deck that's going to enjoy doing that type of thing? And I think that there's a lot of deck building we've missed out on as we take a look at these decks because people aren't thinking as pragmatically as Rogerio is. So what do you all think? Totally unbiased poll here. I thought that this was fun to do. Thanks for engaging in my bias and humor a little bit. But I think this rating is also like realistic that I didn't intend it to be this way. I was just trying to come up with like all positive things. But like the card is great. The hype is greater. That like, yeah, the card is still good, but the hype around him definitely exceeds the goodness of the card. So I didn't intend this rating to be that way. I intended them to all just like be the same, but I think, this is realistic. So top performing decks we have for Prowler is according to win rate. The number 1 deck we have is Scream, which is like Scream is just a really good deck to play right now. In the meta, it's a really good deck to play even without Prowler, and so Prowler naturally fits in Scream for a lot of reasons. Like one, you're moving cards around, so Prowler really fits. He fits in with the curve in a lot of ways, and then also his skills just kind of go on top of what you're doing of like giving you some extra energy or disrupting your opponent. Like his skills are just good value, especially when you're most likely going to be able to play them for 0 in a deck that's constantly moving things. So yeah, Scream makes a lot of sense to include the Prowler in. Next is we have the I'm sad deck, right? The techification of my Hydra Stomper deck, but I'm not sad about it. Like that last week, was it last week? Was Spider-Man War? Maybe it was 2 weeks ago. Whatever it was, I went on. Everyone was so nice in the comments. Thank you. It genuinely means a lot to me how kind you all are to me. But I've moved on. That I've just kind of come to terms with it and not made it all about me and not been as dramatic about it. And so I'm not sad anymore. But it's just funny to call this deck I'm sad. So that's why I'm going to continue to call it that. And obviously it makes sense in here. You're moving cards around. In particular, I was lazy and I did not check the win rate of this deck without the Prowler, but I actually think that it's better without him. And in playing against, well, actually, let me re-say that. Is this deck better without the Prowler? I don't know. But people are playing this deck suboptimally by focusing on the Prowler, which also happens when you have new card syndrome, if we want to call it that. It's the new card, you want to play it. You want to play when Prowler is sitting in your hand and you're looking at your board and thinking, it'd probably be better to play Batroc and Craven this turn, or Batroc and Silk this turn. I'm going to play the Prowler, or whatever it is. Whatever your curve is looking at, people tend, and then when they do play the Prowler, that's fine. Maybe that was the right thing to do. But then they get really laser focused on his skills, which, if there's 0 cost, just play the skills. There's no reason not to. But I've just noticed that people are so focused on achieving the effect of the new card that they're not playing as well as maybe they could be, is my assumption. I don't know. I know I'm doing the same thing because the card's cool and we want to test him out. And we want to achieve his effect. So the data here is it's still good. So I'm waffling around and saying, I don't know if he makes this deck better or not, because it's hard to determine. The next one we have, I'm calling Trail Mix, because it's this makes a lot of sense to play, and I just don't want to play it because none of the cards fit together thematically, which is such a silly reason. But all of my deck building with the Prowler, in fact, one of the notes I had written down was something with Agamotto and spells and Nicholas Scratch, and then I crossed it out because I was just that doesn't have the Spider-Man theme that I'm enjoying with these other decks, and so that's why I'm calling it Trail Mix, because it's just a mix of things. But it's doing good, this which is cool to see a card like Nicholas Scratch be relevant. Agamotto is really fun to play, and I think that this just makes it a lot of fun to play. I think it's a cool deck. The only thing that you're going to have move around is obviously the shield from Captain America. Hawkeye Kate Bishop can maybe cause some things for you to move around, and then of course Werewolf moving around with spells from Merlin or from Clea, or any of your other on reveals. Kate Bishop can all get that move to get Prowler discounted. So yeah, it's a good deck, and this is a deck where probably you're going to have the skills cost 1 the most frequently, as opposed to any other deck, because you have you have Hawkeye Kate Bishop, but let's just kind of take her out because that's pretty inconsistent and expensive. It's a higher curve. So let's say you have Sam Wilson, Captain America, and Werewolf by Night in a deck with deck dilution like Agamotto, so you're going to draw them less frequently. So statistically, this is probably the deck where Prowler skills are being played as a 1 cost and not a 0 most frequently, and it's still doing well. Then we have this deck that had a lot of games on it. Not a great cube rate, but pretty good win rate, but just probably the most games. And I think it's because it's the deck that Regis made for his Prowler video, but it has Ezekiel Sims, which I love seeing people play Ezekiel Sims. I feel like it's a card everybody moved on from way too quickly. My vote is this is probably a pretty suboptimal version of an Ezekiel Sims deck. So yeah, that's this deck. I also apologize if there's some extra noise now. My daughter is now with me in the room, but she's just having a good time coloring. So we will continue with the next deck, which is, I'm calling it Xorn to Run, which I'm including, just because I love Xorn, and this is a kind of a take on that Hydra Stomper mass move deck, but with Xorn, which makes it a lot of fun. I love people seeing, I also kind of hate people seeing Rocket Raccoon and Groot because it's an annoying card to play against, but this one makes a lot of sense to play and looks fun and has a lot of games, surprisingly. So people playing Xorn, which is fun. And then this one is the zombies version, the werewolf zombies version, which I'm just not a huge fan of, but you get, particularly with Joaquin Torres, you have really incredible skills from Deafening Chord, the Hunger, Web Sling, Merlin skills, and also Prowlers. Those all do great things with Joaquin Torres. So yeah, it just kind of makes a lot of sense. And then you have the other package of Zombie Scarlet Witch, because you kind of have the problem with the Prowler, where okay, cool, I'm doing my cool Prowler stuff, but then how do I get points somewhere else? And, even though I'm annoyed playing against it so many ways, Zombies is a really strong archetype to play, and, is a good, points foundation to begin a deck building process with. So then we get to the decks that I have been enjoying with the Prowler. And the first one is the Go-Go Gadget deck, or the one that I featured in my video about the Prowler. Well, I included 7 decks about the Prowler, but the one that I played. I will say that in the videos I took out Sage for Cannonball because we already had the Mercury combo. I actually found that Sage was better. So I put Sage back in and have been having a good time enjoying this deck. I would show you some stats. Typically, there would be some stats right here, but Untapped has completely stopped tracking games for me on mobile, and that's particularly this week, basically all I've been playing, so I have no data for you. And then we have this deck, which I've been extremely excited to show with you. If I would have had time this week, I would have made a video for it and probably titled it something like, "This is the best Prowler deck I've played all week," or something, because I genuinely have played this all week. I shared a bounce deck that was titled the same thing in my original video for the Prowler, where I showed the 7 decks to you. This is a further iteration of that. As I tweaked some more, as I mentioned in that video, it felt like it wasn't quite in the right spot yet. This feels like the perfect spot. I will say that this one's a lot slower, for lack of better words, than a typical bounce deck. You're not bouncing as much as you usually are, especially if you're trying to get the Prowler with Werewolf, because it's usually you play Werewolf on 3, a 1 cost on 4 to move Werewolf, and then on Prowler, and you can play Prowler on 5, and to get those skills at 0 to help out with Hit Monkey. But then it's also like, oh, how do you beast on 5? So like the timing and turns and curve of it can get weird. And so with it being slow, walking Torres is really key here, because with walking Torres, even if what you play on a later turn is walking Torres, Rocket, Hit Monkey, and then 2 of Prowler's skills discounted to 0, maybe another 1 cost that you got to 0 somehow, like that is a really impactful final turn that can give you a lot of points on the board, especially when you have Bishop down and Werewolf moving around. So it really can kind of come from behind late, but it can also struggle in some matchups, so be aware of that. But either way, it's been a ton of fun to play. You can get a pretty big Hit Monkey with this deck. Sometimes you don't get the Prowler's thing at all, and so it's, the other thing is that sometimes you get Prowler down on 4 because your opponent moves something, which is nice. Like so many people are playing move decks that you don't even have to rely on Werewolf to get Prowler discounts, because your opponent's doing stuff, which counts as well for the Prowler, which I think is really, really cool. Overall, I've just had a ton of fun playing this deck. Like I mentioned, I don't have any data. If I were to just kind of go off of gut feeling, I think it's probably about a 65-ish% win rate. But that's, like I mentioned, just an estimate. So with all of that being said, all those decks analyzed, is Prowler worth it? And I'm saying yes, because he's cool. I have a hard time recommending people that go and get cards. And he's not like flat out busted the best card that you could get in the game ever. But the decks that he's in are fun to play. And even if you don't have like these more expensive decks that have like Hydra Stomper and the Season Pass card with Spider-Punk and Xorn and all these other more expensive decks, he's still a fun card to play, and he's also just cool that I think you would enjoy him, even if you're not playing the most meta, optimal version of his deck. Even if you're just kind of throwing him in something else you're playing with good cards, he's going to be fun. So now let's talk about Hydra Man, who has a significantly less popularity at 1.9%, a negative win rate, as we call it, at 49.8, and a negative 0.05 cube rate. But I think that's because people have been experimenting a little bit more with him. He's obviously less popularity means less optimization, so to speak. So what was my rating? In my seasonal reaction video, I gave him 3 spiders. I kind of just stand by that. Like, he's just kind of a ramp card that just gives you what you need, and like there's not a much of excitement about that. So yeah, I don't think he needs a change. I don't think he needs to be better. Like, this style of ramp card is totally fine. And I think that, like, again, a 3-star card from a free game mode that you can get for free without even grinding very much, I think is like good. And I think that in the decks that he's going to play in, he's going to be like good enough and totally fine. Like, again, not every card needs to be earth-shattering amazing. And I think that he's just like good. So what do you all think of Hydra Man? Well, in the poll that I put out, of 352 people voted, and they either don't have him yet, or they just kind of say like, meh. He's just kind of meh, which like puts him kind of perfectly at 3 spiders, like I mentioned. So looking at the decks that he is performing in, and I forgot to do this, so I got to do it right now, actually. All right, so the first deck we have is what I'm calling Wet Machine. If anyone's playing this deck and calls it anything but Wet Machine, I have failed. It's basically a War Machine deck. The Zola combo is kind of interesting here, but, with a ramp of Electro, you can kind of do something really fun that way, so I think it's kind of cool. This is a take on the existing War Machine deck. The good news is no Storm Legion junk, which is really nice. Now, if we compare the win rate to that, the Legion War Machine Storm version has a 56% win rate, and 0.32 cube rate, so much higher cube rate, but that makes sense. This is like a brand new build. People are still learning it. The cube, like the snapping is not as direct and like clear cut as that War Machine Legion deck. Then win rate's a little bit lower, but I would way rather see Wet Machine than the Storm Machine. As we move on to deck number 2 with Hydra Man, I have to apologize that if it's like cuts every 3 seconds and it's just super choppy, it's because my daughter's here and she's constantly asking for new colors to go color. So I apologize if there's a lot of edits here. But the Tectonic Tide, as I'm calling it, because it's got Mole Man and Hydra Man, which is kind of fun. Pretty middling, like really kind of subpar win rate and cube rate. Wiccan is a really fun build to have with Hydra Man, I think, because you are in an even better spot to position than your opponent with that 1 power cost on top deck. So yeah, overall, it's just kind of is what it is. It's not the most exciting thing ever. Mole Man is just like a fun flavor in here, which I like. Then we have 2 versions of Darkhawk. They're both at like a 50% win rate. This is the first one. The second one, like super similar cube and win rate. Neither one is particularly super strong. You can pick either version that you want. They'll both be, and they both feature the Black Widow combo, which is just mean with Hydra Man, that you play Black Widow and then play Hydra Man on 5 and then activate Black Widow, so they never get to draw their 1-costed card. Well, you get to. Hilarious. Rude, but kind of funny. So, yeah, you could pick either version. This is the Quake kind of anti-venom version. Well, actually, they both have anti-venom. I guess it's kind of like the main thing is like, what's your choice of a tech card in Goliath versus Cosmic Ghost Rider is the main difference. Also, total hack before we move on from the dark. If you're a parent, these Artistro paint sticks, they're just off of Amazon. Oh, game changer for coloring. These are the easiest things to wash off of anything. Game changer. Anyway, moving on to the next deck, which I'm really excited. It's been a really busy week with obviously Thanksgiving here in America, but then it's also been my wife's birthday, so I haven't played a single game with Hydra Man. So instead of featuring my own decks, I'm excited to feature other people's in my Discord, or people have told me about it on YouTube comments. Really cool to be able to showcase other people's cool builds, starting with this first one from Longshot. So this one, I think, is like the superior version of the Wiccan build. I just really, really like this. He sent me a screenshot. This has 130 games. He sent me a screenshot where he had played 116 games with it. So that's like all him, which I think is awesome. I think that this is a really, really cool build. I think that's like everything that you would love to hit with Hydra Man, anti-venom that Luke Cage helps with. I just think that this build is sweet for the Wiccan version of Hydra Man. Like, I want to go play this. And then we have this one from Kaber in the Discord, or Source 3 in the comments. He's always whipping up cool stuff, which again, Wiccan allows you to pull off the incredibly devious combo of Hydra Man into Cable, because Cable always draws the top card of their deck. So you Hydra Man, because on turn 5 you'll have 7 energy, so you can Hydra Man into Cable. So you play Hydra Man first, both cards get set to 1, and then you draw their 1 cost. Like, that's just evil. That's just so rude. Again, I have no data for any of these. I just think that it's really, really fun. I also think the playline of Leader is like deviously genius, because obviously with Hydra Man, let's say you're not able to stop him with Black Widow or Cable, right? You don't get those draws for some reason. They're probably going to play something big, so just steal it with Leader. I think that that's really fun. Also, like, it's Moist Big Brain. Like, what a fun name. This one was from QAM, who's an Alliance member. They're also in the Discord. I think this is like a cool combination of Man Spider and Hydra Man with Electro, which is what I wanted to build. I think you could do something really, really cool with Man Spider. Like, you play Electro into Man Spider into Hydro Man, and then you have extra energy with a bunch of 6 costs. Like, I think that this deck is really cool. If I were building a deck for Hydro Man, the place that I was thinking about when when he was data mined and all that was something along these lines with Electro and Man Spider. Again, haven't had a chance, but I think it's fun. So after looking at that, is Hydro Man worth it? And take that into account that I haven't played a single game with him yet, so I have no game experience with him. But in reality, if you started Sanctum Showdown at the start of the event, all it would have taken to unlock him, free to play, was 6 wins a day, which I think is really reasonable for a card. And I think if you are far enough along in the track, he's worth unlocking, because you can do some like pretty decent ramp things that, like, again, taking a look at these decks, I mean, that one's kind of expensive, but like these are pretty, here's a better example. Like, these are pretty low series cards. Like, I would hope that you already have Mobius and Shadow King because those are just really good cards to have. But even if you don't, like these, you can replace the like you could put Magneto in here. You could put a Giganto in here. You could put a Hulkling if you have one. Like you could put a Cosmo or a Red Guardian. Like you could replace your cards pretty easily in these decks. And so I feel like Hydra Man, KM Best said it in the Discord where he said like the Hydra Man decks is like the most viable ethical ramp has ever been, if that makes sense. And like if you're at a lower collection level or your collection is limited, ethical ramp is like one of the decks that you can actually play. And so I think Hydra Man is worth it, especially because it's 6 wins a day, right? Of course, if you're starting now and you only have until daily reset on Tuesday, like okay, you're gonna have to go, or daily reset on Monday, you're gonna have to win a lot more than that. But I do think it's worth it. Also, if you spend 800 gold, you unlock him immediately with the premium event pass, and 800 gold for a card is not bad. So we will round out this video with Spider-Punk. We'll take a look at him. It's his last weekend missions you need to achieve with him. It's at his highest popularity so far, which makes sense. More people are getting him and playing him towards the end of the season. He's at 13.4%. Win rate is kind of settled down to that 52.8%. So again, nothing like astronomically game-breaking, but just good. I think that like particularly now in the meta that we're seeing from like untapped data is that, 53-ish% and above is considered good. And then his cube rate at 0.12. So taking a look at the decks that are performing, it's nothing new, really, just kind of like a shuffling of the order, where really cool to see that the Red Wing Spider-Punk deck, or Punk Wing as I'm calling it, was the #1 deck according to win rate. I love seeing people play Red Wing and Xorn. This is very, very in fact, this actually might... In fact, does Resident Monsters have Blink? Resident Monster, you don't have Blink. Who do you have in... No, maybe you do have Blink. Who do you have instead of Blink? I don't remember. Resident Monster, he's a commenter on the channel, member of the Alliance and in the Discord, has an incredible deck guide to their... Oh, they have Surge in here and not Sparky. Anyway, they have a great deck guide for this exact deck. I feel like they were kind of the pioneer of the Xorn Red Wing deck way before Spider-Punk was released. So cool to see it increasing in not necessarily popularity, but in effectiveness in its win rate. Then we have the Hydra Stomper, what I'm calling evolved deck, that it kind of this mid-rangey package of it. I don't like using those words because they confused me for the longest time. When someone says mid-range, if you're new to that, what it kind of means is it's mainly like not trying to go super, super high power, just trying to get like middle of the road, decent power, plus some tech options to shut down your opponent. That's what like people say when they say mid-range or mid-rangey, is that it's like pretty decent power, nothing crazy, super combo-y, highly synergistic, but enough power to be meaningful when you also have some tech to deal with your opponent's power. And so this, like, it just continues to evolve, and the Thing First Steps is a really, really interesting card to include in here, a card that I have not nearly played enough. Surprisingly, it makes me want to experience with this. Like, as much as I complained about the techification of my two favorite archetypes of Hydra Stomper, Mass Move, and Victoria Hand, which, again, does make me very sad, I am able to, like, look past this and be able to want to play that. Because, as just, like, a side note, this video is kind of all over the place. I apologize for that. But Cosmo onto Madam Web obviously protects your Madam Web, but also creates insane mind games for your opponent because they have to constantly wonder, are they going to move the Cosmo? And if so, where and when? And that is just a lot of fun to see. So, really, I think this deck is pretty cool. And then we have just like basic move, the Heimdall move that's kind of been popular this whole season. The win rate still continues to be pretty good. Less people are playing it this week than ever, and I think it's just that people have kind of like moved on, where we have short attention spans and move on to the newest thing. I think it's still a good deck to play. And then Scream, which was previously the #1 deck, has just kind of fallen down a little bit. And I think that's because less people were playing this version of Scream, and they were playing the Hydra Stomp, or not Hydra Stomper, the Prowler version of Scream. This is running the Cannonball combo, even without Mercury. I like playing the version with Arrow. I think that version does better, but according to the data on Tapped, it's not as good. And then kind of the rest of the decks for Spider-Punk are just variations of the last four that you've seen. Either Hydra Stomper, regular move, or Scream decks is kind of where he seems to be, right? And as an example, you got two different versions of Hydra Stomper, right? You got this... Oh, this one doesn't have a Hydra Stomper. Never mind. But you get what I'm saying, that it's like Hydra Stomper move, regular move, or Scream are like the 3 decks that he's in, and you just get variations of those depending on what cards people have. Which makes it a kind of a bummer because I wish that more people would have experimented, me included, with Spider-Punk as just like a good 3 cost. Because you move him once and he's a 3/7, right? Because he becomes 3/5 and then he's still, you know how the math works. Like, it's just kind of, and maybe that's just the state of the meta, that we've gone away from like just good cards and decks that aren't necessarily all part of this game plan, that like things need to be particularly synergistic. But I just think that the deck building has gotten like very one note with Spider-Punk, that, oh, he moves, so let's play him in move decks. Where it's like, well, he's a 3/7, so let's play him as a 3/7 in decks. I don't think a lot of people are doing. So the decks that I've been enjoying with Spider-Punk is this Go-Go Gadget deck. This one is the one that I shared earlier with Prowler, right? It's the one that I made in my Prowler video. I mentioned it earlier with Prowler, but it also has Spider-Punk, and I've really been enjoying it. This Topastic deck that I just feel like people skip on Topaz and Xorn so much. Obviously, you see a little bit more Xorn popularity, also Xorn blindness with your opponent. Xorn is just a cool card. I really like Xorn and hope more people play him, and I want to play him more. But I also feel like Topaz is a card that people are really sleeping on. So I've continually enjoyed this Topaz deck. And that is the end of the decks and data video. I appreciate you being here. Kind of sad that this Spider season is coming to an end and we're going to get into Destroy. We have yet to see the developer update video because it was a holiday weekend. But what I will say is I'll put out a reaction video, and because I haven't even really taken a deep dive into the cards. But I know we have Weapon X, and there's a lot of Destroy and discard next season, which I am not particularly excited about because I just don't like playing Destroy a lot, and I don't like playing against Destroy a lot. I already feel like it's strong enough, and now they're like Destroy, in addition to just getting more Destroy pieces, is getting a bunch of cards that, on top of having good Destroy synergy, are also just like, well, that's annoying to play against. So, like cards like, I'm trying to think of an example, like Hazmat is like, okay, that's annoying. Like, now I got to deal with that, and there's a lot of those coming next season. Anyway, it's kind of crazy that the season is coming to an end. If you're watching this and it is, I might be live right now on Saturday at 12 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time, which is in about an hour my time. So probably about the time this video is uploaded. I'll be live. I'd love to see you. Normally it's exclusive to members only, but inviting everyone for the holiday weekend. Anyway, thanks for watching, and hope that you have fun playing some Marvel Snap this weekend. Appreciate you. See you in the comments.